Hey, welcome back. Welcome to episode 179. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how this one thing is the critical thing that you need to get right if you want to get lean, strong, and fit for life. And no, it's not another diet, but it is the thing that if you start here, the entire process is going to become much easier. Next, we're going to talk about why hunger and listening to your body is a horrible strategy, and why intuitive eating is driving so many people to eat more and gain more weight. I also want to talk about my current progress. What am I doing? I think as I've been on the podcast and connecting with several people on social media over the past few years, one of the questions I get asked most is, what are you doing and what are you testing right now? So, as a person who loves to test and try things out, I want to give you an update on some things that I find interesting in my own life. I also want to dive into a statement that I hesitate to use this statement because of how popular it became when it was used in Ted Lasso. But the statement is, be curious, not judgmental, and how this one statement can be applied to your life to help you to lose more weight, get out of pain, and stay in a better state for a much longer period of time. Now, I've got an amazing offer for those of you that are listening to the podcast, especially for those of you that live in Utah. I've got several things coming down the pipeline that I want to introduce to you, so stay tuned for that. And then I also want to give you some updates on some successes and some wins that I've seen recently from some of my current clients. Now, why do that? Well, I believe that in our society, it's important to hear about, to understand stories of people who are doing this in a way that I would call the right way. They're not taking drugs, they're not taking shortcuts, they're not using pokes, pills, and powders to get very quick results that eventually go away. So I want to talk to you about some really cool things that I've seen with some clients of mine recently. Let's start off by talking about nutrition archetypes. Now, the nutrition archetype system is a system that I've put together based on observation over several years. In fact, probably 2.5 decades of coaching people. I hate to say that I came up with the nutrition archetype system because, in a way, it came to me as I started to ponder certain questions. When I was asking the question of why is it that certain people continue to fail and while others can succeed, what are the common themes of success and what are the common themes of failure? What came to me was that there are several archetypes or ways of framing your psychology, your social setting, and your emotional makeup that give us insight into how you eat. Now, I know at the beginning of this episode, I told you that this is the one thing that you need to start with, and here's why. Every single person listening to this podcast understands, at least at a basic level, that in order to lose weight, you have to be in a caloric deficit. If you want to build muscle, you have to have adequate protein. If you want to have great energy, then the energy needs to come from carbohydrates and fats in a mixture that works well with your body. If you're not in a caloric deficit, you will not lose weight. If you are not at least at maintenance or slightly above maintenance, you will not be able to build muscle. These are basic scientific principles. I understand I'm going against the grain here because I'm not telling you to join my cult or my fad diet, but the basic scientific principles by anyone that's in the industry that is worth their salt will not argue these points. So why am I telling you that you need to start with understanding your psychology, your social, and your emotional structure? Well, it's because over the years, I've seen people diet themselves to a point where they become so frustrated and they don't understand what it looks like to achieve long-term success that they just eventually give up. Well, that's not rooted in the biochemistry of understanding or not understanding the caloric deficit or a caloric surplus. What it's rooted in is a lack of understanding of how that particular person is wired. So I want to talk directly to you today as if you and I were sitting in a room together. And I'm going to imagine that you are one of my clients that has taken my nutrition archetype quiz and has come up with a specific combination of archetypes that fit directly with how you're wired. So I call it the psychosocial emotional model. It basically is a way of looking at your psychology, your social structure, and your emotions as it relates to food and drink interaction. So this isn't just I eat this way because, but it's where do you interact with people socially? How does that cross over with food and drink? Are you the type of person that connects with people in restaurants? Are you the type of person that's going to bars or coffee shops? Do you like to eat alone? Do you like to eat with other people? Again, it's not really about food, it's about how you interact and how food and drink relates to that. Now, if you understand your basic psychology and you understand your emotions, and you understand what your social circle looks like, then you're going to be able to understand what it takes to be successful. So, let's start by talking about if you took the quiz today and you came up with a communication creative archetype. Now, what is a communication archetype? Let's start there. And why am I talking about two archetypes and not just one? Now, if you go onto my website, becomeinvolvedman.com, you'll be able to take this test. Now, I will give you a caveat. This test takes about 6 minutes for people who just go through it and take it without overthinking the questions. So it will take a little bit of a time investment. Some people try to have asked me over the years if I could cut that down to less. Honestly, if you need less, I don't really want you taking the quiz, if I'm being honest, because if you can't invest 6 minutes in yourself, then you will not invest the time that it takes to make the lifestyle changes that you're looking to make. So there's the caveat. It will take about 6 minutes to take. When you're finished, you will get a result that will pop up that says you are a blank archetype. And it will give you one of the archetypes relative to the answers that you gave us. Now, what I've found is that most people straddle between a couple of different archetypes. Their primary and their secondary archetypes become the framework of how they interact with life and with food, drink, and their emotions. And so when I coach people, we dive into what those two archetypes are and how they cross over. So again, I'm assuming that you and I are sitting in the room together, we're having a coaching session, and you are a communication creative archetype. What is a communication archetype? Well, a communication archetype is essentially that you eat primarily to communicate something to your body. And so you might be the type of person that counts calories. You may be tracking your macros. You may buy that specific matcha because you understand that the caffeine that goes with the L-theanine in the matcha is phenomenal for your energy, and it doesn't cause you to spike and drop very quickly. And you've also read all of these other studies, and you've heard all of these other things about the benefits of matcha, and so you drink matcha because of that, right? So a communication archetype is a person who has a vested interest in ingesting something that then gives them a specific result. For instance, I wake up in the morning and generally my breakfast consists of some sort of probiotic. That could be a kombucha, that could be some yogurt. And then I also eat a pretty high amount of fiber. So I'm getting protein, I'm getting probiotics, and I'm getting fiber. Now, why do I do that at the beginning of the day? Frankly, I just feel good. I want to communicate to my body that I want it to have a great microbiome. I want it to have phenomenal bacteria, and I want it to have prebiotics and things that feed that bacteria. Now, I also want to have great energy throughout the day, and I want to feed muscle growth and or at least protect the muscle from going away, which right now is my number one goal as I'm in the end of my trail running season. So communication archetypes are people who eat or drink or choose not to eat or drink to communicate something to the body, some sort of result. Now, creative archetypes are quite a bit different. Creative archetypes inherently are the people that came up with the phrase, you eat with your eyes first. Creative archetypes look for novelty. They are the types of people that want to make the plate beautiful. They want to make sure that the flavor, that the fit of the food on the plate, that everything is beautiful, elegant, flavorful. Creative archetypes express themselves through the creativity of the food. Creative archetypes love to share their food oftentimes with others. They may bake and never eat the cookie, the bread, or whatever it is that they make and give it to other people because creating is part of their outlet. Sharing is part of their outlet. They are wired to connect with food and with other people through the process of creation. Creative archetypes might be the people who show up with the most beautiful trifle at a dinner, and they've spent hours building this thing so that it looks stunning, so that when it goes on the table, everybody looks at it and says, wow. So a communication archetype may be the person that you don't want at a party because they are bringing their chicken, rice, and broccoli in a Tupperware, whereas a creative archetype, pardon me, might be the person that you want because they bring the beautiful food. Now, if you're a communication creative archetype, there are some positives about this combination, and there are some things that you need to be aware of. So, what are the positives? Well, communication archetypes are very good at making adjustments to dietary needs. And so, if you're wanting to build more muscle, they're very good at saying, I'm currently eating X amount of protein, and I need to start eating Y. Communication archetypes understand a deeper complexity to food. They can understand because they've spent more time looking into it, studying it. They understand that just going and eating one thing, like let's say a carnivore does, is probably not the best thing for them because they're missing other micronutrients, other minerals, other vitamins, other things within the diet. And so they want to get the best out of it. So communication archetypes are very, very adept at eating for a specific way. Now, I will say, many carnivores, many ketogenic, maybe many vegans are inherently communication archetypes because they eat thinking that what they're doing is communicating health and wellness or muscle building or fat loss to their bodies. Creative archetypes are phenomenal at making food fun. They're phenomenal at making the experience something that you want to be around. The communication archetype might be the mopey dopey person in the corner eating their chicken, broccoli, and rice and saying, I've got to eat this because food is fuel. Whereas the creative archetype is the one bringing the cakes, the cookies, or the beautiful charcuterie board that they have perfectly aligned. Now, the downside of a communication archetype is they have a hard time often seeing the forest for the trees. I've had several clients that come to me that are communication archetypes, and the number one question they ask is, why am I not losing fat even though I'm eating clean? And so communication archetypes often get caught up in the nuance, the detail, that they miss the bigger picture. So as we start to peel back the onion layer and we look at what they're eating, yes, they are eating very, very clean. They are eating the chicken, rice, and broccoli, or they are eating the chicken and the potato and the cauliflower. So they're eating foods that we would consider very nutrient dense. And then they don't because they get sick of that and they don't have nuance to what they're eating. And so then when it comes to social situations, when it comes to the birthday party and the cake is brought out, they fall apart. And so communication archetypes really struggle because they have a harder time emotionally going into other areas. Communication archetypes, you would probably look at them at times and think, well, you have no personality or you have no emotion. They do. They just have a harder time tapping into it. Creative archetypes, however, are people who tap into the emotion and to the senses of the entire setting that you're going into when it comes to food, whether it's a restaurant, a birthday party, or just breakfast. Creative archetypes struggle to understand how to make changes to their body while staying creative. And so if you are a communication archetype, or excuse me, a communication creative archetype, here's my advice to you. Number one, I want you to start journaling. I eat this because, and why do you eat the things that you eat? Keep a journal of everything that you eat and write down why you're eating it. This leans into the thing that you already love, which is understanding why you eat what you eat. Number two, understand that your creative side does not negate the communication side. So I've got a client who wanted to achieve great goals, wanted to drop body fat, improve his overall health, get out of pain, build strength, all of the things. He is a creative archetype. He's actually a creative connector, which connecting archetypes are people who want to connect with other people. Well, what we did with the creative piece is we said, let's lean into that, but in a way that works for your goals. And so instead of, can you create the most sugar and fat laden dessert? It's what can you do when you're making food for yourself or others to make it look beautiful? What can you do to make that food flavorful without adding a lot of extra calories? We also went so far as to say, hey, that grill that you want, go buy it. Oh, by the way, that apron that you want when you're grilling, those special tools, go get them. Creative archetypes love their tools. Just like a painter or a sketch artist has their favorite paintbrush or their favorite drawing implementation, creative archetypes love to use their tools. And so we lean into this idea of having the tools that were going to be best for him. So if you are a creative archetype, if you're a communication creative archetype, the first thing I want you to do is lean into the communication. Write down what you're doing and why. And then second, tell yourself the creative side does not negate my communication side, and find ways to make what you're doing look, taste, and feel beautiful, elegant, spectacular, whatever words you want to use to describe it. Now, why do we use the archetype system, and why do I say that this is the number one thing? Well, the reality is, if you don't understand your psychology, if you don't understand your social structure, and if you don't understand how emotionally you are tying yourself to food, you will have a hard time making changes that stick. Creative archetypes, for instance, can go on a diet for about 5 to 7 days before they want to scratch their eyeballs out. Now, I say 5 to 7 days, and that's really kind of the boiling point. By the time a creative archetype gets to the third day, they are already starting to itch. They are already starting to feel the pull of getting off of that diet because it is way too restrictive. That doesn't mean creative archetypes can't lose weight, can't gain muscle, and can't develop a strong, lean, fit, flexible body. It just means that they can't follow a diet. They need flexibility in what they do. They need to understand what the rules and the parameters are when it comes to gaining muscle, losing body fat, and developing their flexibility. But they need the ability to play. And a creative archetype will never do well on any strict, demanding diet. So if you're a creative archetype, the worst thing that you can do is go join another diet cult. Now, once you understand what your archetype is, then we start to move forward and can make changes from there. But if you just swap out your daily McDonald's run for a pre-prepared meal that you've made, or maybe you've purchased from a meal service, it will never stick because you haven't understood why you're doing what you're doing. So here's what I want you to do. If you're curious about this and you have 6 minutes to invest, go to becomeanevolvedman.com and take the nutrition archetype quiz. Now, if you say, hey, Steve, I'm too busy, I don't have time to take the 6 minutes, but some of this is interesting. Well, if you go to becomeanevolvedman.com, I also have another quiz that you can take that will help you to get some insight into how you're wired. This is what I call the breakpoint quiz. The breakpoint is where all of your resolve dissolves. What I mean by that is when you resolve to make a change and it falls apart, the wheels fall off the bus, when is it for you? You see, there are about 3 or 4 different breakpoints that most people have. And I want you to understand what your breakpoint is. If the nutrition archetype is too laborious, start with the breakpoint so you can at least start to understand where things fall off. That quiz will take you less than 30 seconds, and it will pop out some information to help you understand where your breakpoints are so that you can start to move forward. It's been several hundred years before we have ever, at least most of us in the Western world and the places where this podcast gets to, where we have ever had to experience real hunger. Now, I know you think that you're hungry, but what evolutionary biology teaches us and what we understand through both psychology and physiology, that the hunger that most of us experience today is not actual hunger. You see, the body and the brain are designed to keep us alive. What you call hunger is nothing more than a Pavlovian response to a certain situation. Years ago, and I'm not sure if she understood what she was doing, but years ago, this has become a huge joke in our family. My wife, when we would get in the car with our 3 little kids, would say, "Are you guys thirsty?" And some of them would say yes, some of them would say no, depending on where we were, what the time was. What happened over time is she Pavloved them, as we call it. Now, if you haven't read Pavlov's study and what he did to train dogs with the salivation and the bell, go read that. Go look it up. But what happened over time is, as the kids would get in the car, they would automatically say, "Mom, I'm thirsty. Do you have water?" They weren't thirsty. They were just trained to drink water as soon as they got into the car. Just like when I was a kid, I was trained to go to the bathroom before we went on a long road trip. Did I really need to go to the bathroom? Probably not. But did my mom and dad want to stop along the way and wait for me to go to the bathroom 100 miles down the road, 50 miles down the road? Probably not. So I was trained to go to the bathroom before we went on the long road trip. My kids were trained to drink water as soon as they got into the car. Hunger is a trained response. What we call hunger today is not really hunger. It is simply a void that we are filling in our daily life. When you walk into a kitchen, you are triggered by the sight of the kitchen. You are triggered by the sight of the food that you have sitting out. You are triggered by the sight of the refrigerator. And that triggers you to say, it's time to eat. Now, some of you aren't triggered by a particular situation, but you may be triggered by a time. You were told that breakfast is the most important meal in the day, and so when you wake up, you are ravenously hungry because the Honey Smacks rabbit, or no, what was he? It was a toad. The Honey Smacks toad, or the Trixer for Kids little bunny rabbit, told you that breakfast was the most important meal of the day, and so ever since you were a little kid, you got programmed to be hungry in the morning. Some of you, as you went through high school and college, realized that you woke up with this fear and trepidation in your stomach because you didn't do the homework from the night before, and so the idea of eating something in the morning continued to make your stomach churn because you had fear and trepidation about going to school. And so you skipped breakfast. And so morning time didn't equal hunger for you. But by the time you got to lunch, you realized that you didn't perform as well on that test that you were hoping to perform. And all of the stress and the dump of sugar into your brain to make your brain work harder made you feel even more stressed. And so by the time you got to lunch, you thought, it's time to relax and it's time to eat. So you took the tray and you went up and you got as many helpings and as many servings of the cookies, the donuts, the brownies, whatever they had in the school lunch, and you trained yourself to eat. And so those of you that don't feel good in the morning, but you feel great at lunchtime, or you feel great and you want to eat and binge at dinner time, these are all trained responses. Now, how do we know that you're not experiencing what we would typically consider hunger, especially relating it to our ancestors and the hunger that they experienced? Well, we know that for a couple of reasons, or we know there's a few ways that we can look at this and say we know it, right? Number one is that obesity is now the number one cause, or the number one reason, I should say, that people are malnourished in our world. It used to be that people were underfed and malnourished. Now we are overfed and malnourished. Well, how can that be? Well, what's happening is we are consuming so many calories. The average American consumes more than 3,000 calories per day, while the average American's basal metabolic rate is closer to 2,000 or even less. We're consuming, on average, many more calories per day than what our body's needs are. Why? We're not magically needing more food. We just have more food readily available. Heavy calorie laden food is easy to access. You can jump on your phone, you can order it quickly, you can jump in the car, drive down to Starbucks and get whatever frozen frappuccino-ish garbage that you want and have 900 to 1,000 calories in a frosty little plastic cup with a pump of this and a spritz of that in no time. And it'll cost you, I don't even know what those are. I apologize. Maybe 9, 10, 12 bucks. I don't know what you guys spend on that kind of stuff. We live in a state of constant fullness. Now, we think we're hungry. We think at the end of the day, after we've had stress, after we've been through so many things at work, and then the traffic, and can you believe Janet said this at the office type of thing? We believe we're hungry. And so what do? Well, we reach for something. When we get home, again, it's a Pavlovian trained response. What you experience as hunger is not really hunger. And this is why most intuitive eating strategies are horrible strategies. I had a client recently ask me, well, should I be listening to my body? And I said, let me ask you a question back. Look at your body. Are you happy with it? No. Why would you listen to it then? Well, but I thought we were supposed to listen to our body because it's going to tell us what we need. Have you done that to this point? Well, kind of. What did your body last tell you? After long pause, insert some sort of ridiculous thing. Bad decision, whatever you want to call it. I said, that doesn't sound like a very health promoting thing that your body is telling you. Well, yeah, but maybe it needs that. No, your body does not need to gorge on the donuts. No, your body does not need to eat that thing. That doesn't mean you're deficient. See, there's a lie out there that people say, well, I believe your body craves what it needs. No, it doesn't. Absolutely doesn't. What your body does, and the way that we are wired, is we are wired to crave staying alive. And so the body has these wonderful mechanisms that it uses to keep you alive. And so if the body perceives hunger, or let's say that you go into a caloric deficit and you're losing weight, your body will then start to ramp up what you consider to be hunger signals. But what it's really doing is it's changing a few things. You see, it's causing you to move a little bit less. We have what's called NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And basically what NEAT is if you're watching me on this podcast, you can see that I'm moving my hands a lot. I'm nodding my head and I'm moving around. This is NEAT, right? This is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So just sitting here talking and moving my hands, I'm burning calories. Now, when you go into a caloric deficit, your body says, wait a minute, we're not getting calories. And so it will find ways to subtly make you move less. Now, these things happen so imperceptibly that there's no way that we could pick up on this on our own. If we were to have someone follow us around with a camera 24/7 and we went back and looked at it, we would see that we're moving less. Maybe we're less gestures. Maybe we're walking less. Maybe we are choosing the escalator rather than walking up the stairs. But whatever it is, we are just moving less. The body has mechanisms that do that, that lower our overall NEAT. That's one of the reasons why if you go on a weight loss plan, we typically program in steps as a way to increase what we would call NEAT. Now, your NEAT and your steps don't really align, but it's probably the best way that we can do, because it's hard for me to say, well, make 10,000 gestures when you're talking today. That's hard to track. It's a little bit easier to track 10,000 steps, right? Or 12,000 or 15 or 16,000, whatever we want you to do for the day. Your body downregulates need when you are in a caloric deficit. The other thing that it does is it plays with two critical hormones, leptin and ghrelin. Think of these as your hunger and your satiety hormones. And so, what your body does is when you are in a caloric deficit, it says, hey, we're going to downregulate one and we're going to upregulate the other. We're going to make you more hungry and we're going to make you less satisfied. Now, if you were to listen to that, you would never lose weight to the level that you want to lose weight. You would never get to the body that you want to so that you could then maintain it. So listening to an overweight body is the worst thing that you can do for your body. The body you have right now, if it's not the body that you want, is not the body you should be listening to. That's like going back to an abuser and saying, hey, tell me again how horrible of a person that I am so that I can then go find myself. No, your brain is going to continually play tricks on you until you reset all of this by dropping body fat, gaining muscle, and then learning how to maintain that for a period of time. Now, standard rule of thumb, just in case you're wondering, is that I've used, and I don't know that there's any scientific literature to back this up. This is something that I picked up from Charles Poliquin, who was a phenomenal strength coach back in the early days of my career. He said that once you lose the body fat, you get to the muscle mass that you're at, start the clock, and about 9 months from that point, 9 to 12 months from that point, if you can maintain within a reasonable range, a few pounds, then it's going to be much easier for you to maintain that for the rest of your life. That's been my personal experience. It's also been the experience of clients. Now, that might mean that 5 months down the road, some clients like, yeah, I've got the habits. My metabolic rate is reset at this level. My hormones have balanced out, but it takes a long time. Once you get to that weight loss goal, to then reset and be at a point where maintenance is easy. But when you do get to maintenance, I'm here to tell you maintenance is much easier. You should not, if you are in an overweight state, go onto an intuitive eating strategy, and you should not listen to the screaming hunger that is happening inside of you. What could you do instead? Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, stick to the plan. If you are on a plan to lose weight, and that plan is well thought out, so that plan includes strength training, it includes some cardiovascular for your overall health, it includes some steps for NEAT, it includes a mild caloric deficit, it includes appropriate amounts of fiber and other micronutrients, it includes appropriate amount of protein to protect or build muscle. Follow the plan. Stick to the plan. And if you stop losing weight, what happens is you're now no longer in a deficit. Well, why not? Well, what a caloric deficit looks like. So let's say a caloric deficit is 2,100 calories for you. And then you lose 5 pounds. You're now weighing less. You may now no longer be in a caloric deficit. And so 2,000 or 1,900 or 1,850 might be the new caloric deficit that you need to be in order to continue that weight loss. Stick to the plan until the plan works. If the plan is not working, then you need to have some tactical moves that you make along the way. Don't just say, but I need to listen to my body. My body told me to eat the donuts. No, it didn't. That was the psychosocial emotional part of you. That's why nutrition archetyping is so critical to this overall process. Please, for the love of all that's holy, do not go onto an intuitive eating strategy and do not listen to the liar called hunger while you are going on this. Embrace the suck. In order to lose body fat, to get to the point where you want to get to, I'm here to tell you, you have to embrace hunger. You have to embrace the point of being hungry. Well, wait a minute, Steve. I can't perform when I'm hungry. Sure you can. You just have to develop a different relationship to it. Well, wait a minute, Steve. I need to recover from workouts. Absolutely agree. That's why just eating bagels all day long in order to hit your calorie deficit might not be the best way to go. That's why just eating a vegan diet to recover from your workouts might not be the best way to go. If you want great performance, you've got to find that balance between I have enough to support my health, to support my goals, but I have just the right amount in order to elicit that consistent caloric deficit. Now, for this segment, I've called it Ever Evolving for the last few episodes because I just thought it would be fun to give you some updates on what am I doing. Years ago, I had a mentor by the name of Paul Chek, and Paul was a gentleman that I studied corrective exercise with, primarily in his studio in San Diego. Had a chance to work with some of Paul's top instructors down there. And Paul came in to talk to us one day, and he said something that resonated with me that has never left me. He says, you damn well better be able to do everything you program for your people to do. And if you're not living this, then you are the biggest hypocrite and you should not be doing this business. Now, does that mean that I'm going to be the fastest runner, the strongest deadlifter, that I'm going to become an NBA or an Olympic champion, and that I have to do those things in order to be a coach? No. I need to be able to keep my head in the game. I need to be able to play in the game. But that doesn't mean that being a coach means I'm going to be the best at those things. And this was the other point that Paul made. He said, you need to be able to do everything unless you start to train somebody like Laird Hamilton. And he told a story because at the time he was training and coaching Laird. One day he shows up for the workout, and Laird has already set up a bunch of stability or Swiss balls out on the grass. And he says, Paul, look what I learned how to do. And Laird jumps up on top of a Swiss ball and then leaves that Swiss ball, flies in the air, spins around 360, and lands on the other one. Paul looked at him and said, well, I can jump on a ball. I can jump off a ball. I think I might even be able to land on another ball. But a 360? He said, Steve, after cracking my rear end about 5 times, I looked at him and I said, the pebble has now been taken from the master by the student. So, in Ever Evolving, I'm not here to promote my lifestyle as the lifestyle that you should do. I am just simply here taking you on the journey with me because it might be fun and maybe you're going to pick up a few things here and there. So what am I currently doing and what am I currently testing? Well, early in the spring, my wife and I went out for a walk, and it was, for some reason, a particularly bad day. I just remember feeling like a few things weren't going well. There were certain parts of the business that I was really frustrated about, and we weren't seeing the growth that I wanted. And so it was a particularly bad day. I said, hey, do you mind just going for a walk with me? Let me download. This is something that we'll do from time to time. We went for a walk to the park, and from the park, it drops down into a dell. Now, this dell is gorgeous. We see deer, we see foxes, we see coyotes, we see all sorts of animals through there. In fact, sometimes we'll take binoculars when we go walk and look at the birds. But this day it was just about walking and talking. We get up to the park and I look around and there are hundreds of people lining up for a race. I had no idea what this was. I was shocked when I saw what they were doing. They were getting out and racing on the trails throughout the dell. So I took a picture of the setup. I went home, looked it up online, and I found a trail run series called the Wasatch Trail Run. I found out that this was, I believe, the second or third race of the season, and they had races on Wednesday nights throughout the entire season, ending at the end of August. I looked at my calendar. I looked at the races that they had, and I thought I could probably knock out about 6 to 8 of those based on when we will be in town. But I wondered, could I even run the short course, which was an average of 5 miles? I haven't run 5 miles in I don't know how many years. Now, this is coming from a guy who was a sprinter back in junior high school age. And the idea of running a mile when a coach has made us do this was ridiculous. I didn't want to run that far. That was way too far. I raced in the 400, and I hated that race because it was too long. I preferred the 1. The 2 was okay, but I really liked the 1, and long jump was okay too because it was a really short sprint to jump, and then I was done. So the next day, I got my running shoes on, and I traced the trail that they had run the night before, and I went out and I ran the race trail. My goal was to finish and then to evaluate my time and see if I could do that. And I did. I finished it. I thought, well, that was slow, but I can do it. So I'm going to commit to this and I'm going to try this for this next season. I've never been a trail runner. I've never been any level of distance runner before. I've only been a sprinter. If I've done anything distance wise, it's been hiking. I love mountains. I love hitting the trail. I love hiking. And I thought trail running would be a fun thing to try. So I jumped in. The next race, I went into it with a certain goal in mind, thinking, okay, based on what my test was, I think if I could achieve this time and this pace, that I'd be in a pretty good spot. Well, at the end of the race, I looked down at my time and I was shocked. I had blown past the time that I had put myself up for, and my pacing was about a minute to a minute and a half faster than what I thought I would do. Blown away, absolutely blown away that I was able to do this. I felt so proud of myself. Jumped in the car, started driving back home, and then it dawned on me that this was a chip timed event. And so I pulled over to the side of the road and I pulled up the website. And in my excitement and exuberance of finishing this race and feeling quite proud of myself that I had run the 5 or so miles on the trails in this beautiful part of Heber, Utah, I looked it up and found that I was somewhere in the 90s relative to everybody else that was there. There were 90 some odd people that had beat me in this race. I don't remember how many people had competed. I just remember somewhere in the 90s. And I was maybe, I don't know, 10th or something, 11th, 12th in my age group. And I thought, wow, okay. I still felt the same. I still felt excited. I felt exuberant. I felt grateful that I could get out and I could do it. And that I was starting a new journey. And I said, this is the place I want to be. Because if there are that many people that are that much better than me, this is exactly where I want to be, because this is going to challenge me. So I sat down and I set some goals. Goal number 1, race on my birthday. The next week was a race that was coming up, and I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate my 49th birthday than to get out on a Wednesday night and go run a trail race. Now, fortunately, one of my daughters said, hey, Dad, I'll come do that with you. And so she was there. My wife was there taking pictures and video of us. And we celebrated my 49th birthday on the trail together. I'm now 6 races in, 2 more to go until the end of the series. And I've learned a massive amount. You see, at the beginning of this series, I realized that I was running far slower. I was starting to get knee pain. I was starting to get some issues popping up, and I couldn't figure out why. So after reviewing some video footage of what I was doing and how I was running, I realized that my technique and my form was way off. I made a few adjustments to how I was training, and within the next few races, I was running significantly faster. Now, I'm not a trail runner. I don't know that I would consider myself to be a trail runner. I love outdoors. Trail running is a form of movement that I really enjoy. And so I had to say to myself, okay, if I'm trail running, I'm doing it for the fun of it. Well, what are my goals? So after goal number 1 of racing on my birthday, goal number 2 became make it to the end of the season without an injury. Goal number 3 would be to compete in every race that I was in town for, which again would be 8 races. The next goal was not anything to do with trail running. The next goal was, how do I continue to maintain muscle mass so that I can look, feel, and act and perform the way that I want to in day-to-day life? Well, that was going to take some finessing, because I don't want to lose muscle mass, and I don't want to just continue to look like a very skinny trail runner. Now, I'm not a big guy. Anybody that knows me or sees me on the video would not mistake me for a Mr. Olympia competitor. But I do have a certain amount of muscle mass that I have acquired over the years that I'm very proud of, that it has taken a long time for me to put that amount of muscle on my small frame. I want to hold on to that. And so my dietary strategy and my strength training strategy was something that I had to be very nuanced about. And so I sat down and said, okay, if my macro cycle of my plan, the large part of my plan, is looking a year forward. Where am I at in this short mesocycle? Over these next few months, what do I want to accomplish and how do I make sure that I achieve those things? So I set a target for myself. My target currently is to be about 80 to 90% of my training in what I call a T1. T1, as I define it, is my zone 1 and zone 2 base building training. Now, when I race, oftentimes I'm zone 3 and above. I rarely spend any time in zone 1 and 2. So, why am I spending the majority of my time in zone 1 and zone 2 with my training? I'm doing it for a few reasons. One, the cardiovascular training is something that I want to build over time. It takes a significant amount of time to build out your cardiovascular base, your zone 1, zone 2 training. And it's also one of the best ways to build your cardiovascular capabilities without putting extra demands on your joints. You see, what I'm not trying to do is to go out and put a lot of pressure onto my joints and a lot of pressure on my metabolic system and my recovery capabilities so that when I lift, I'm fighting for recovery capabilities. Now, if I stay in a T1 target, as I define it, then I'm going to be much better off if I can be between 80 to 90% of my total cardiovascular time in that range. Now, what that means is that to offset my races, I have to get a significant amount of cardio in that T1 target throughout the week so that I can build up that 80 to 90% time. Now, what that's done for me, it's allowed me to get a little bit leaner. It's allowed me to maintain a certain amount of muscle mass that I'm happy with. And it's allowed me to continue to perform and do tougher and tougher races as the season has gone on. Now, I haven't done the entire series. Again, I'm only on my 6th race, but what I can say is some of these later races, the elevation gain is much higher. We're also starting at higher elevations, and they are, at least from my point of view and talking to some of my friends who are racing it, much more difficult races. So by structuring my plan this way, I feel like I'm achieving my goals, and I'm excited to see how this season plays out. At the end of the season, I'll review all my data, and I will see and set goals for the next year. My expectation is that I'll go into the next year and try to hit every race. If we're out of town, I'll do every race that I'm available for, but I am having a blast with it. One of the things I'm loving about jumping in and trying a new sport at the age of 49 is how open everybody is to welcoming me into this community. A few days ago, I was interviewed by one of the people that works for Wasatch Trail, and they're going to be doing a runner spotlight on me. And I had the opportunity to talk to them about what it feels like to be a 49-year-old trying a new sport for the first time. When you show up to the races, people welcome you. When you're on the course, people are cheering for you. And not just the people that are paid to stand there and cheer for you, but other runners will cheer you along. There's been a few mishaps along the way where people have stumbled and run into me a few times. They're very apologetic, very kind. And it's amazing what this community has done to lift other people up when they struggle. I love the sense of community that comes with becoming a part of things. And quite frankly, I never thought that I would be saying this at 49 years old. I love sucking at something. I love starting. I love being somebody who is not very good at it because I love the process of getting better. I think one of the things that we let go as we age is the idea of starting and being really bad at something. And I am absolutely loving not being very good at trail running. And I'm looking forward to getting better over time. Now, excuse me, one of the things that this has helped with in my coaching is opening up conversations to my clients to challenge themselves more, but also taking a more scientific approach to the coaching process, or to their living process, relative or similar to how I coach. Now, I look at my life and I look at my coaching as a way to test ideas. So with each client, we start their program with a hypothesis of what we think is going to work well for them, and we test that hypothesis. And I say hypothesis It's an educated hypothesis. We do a full assessment on each client, and we determine based on that assessment what the client's program should be. Now, we don't always know what exact caloric structure, macronutrient breakdown, sleep schedule, supplementation, strength, all of those things is going to be the right fit at this time. But we start. And we start based on an educated understanding of where the client is at and where they want to go. And then we tweak and we refine over time. As I've been going through this race season, I've been asking myself a question of how will I race best? What is my nutrition strategy? What is my hydration strategy? How do I prep to make sure that my legs are ready? What is appropriate amount of lifting to do as I go into a race? And what do I need to taper on the race weeks versus the non-race weeks? I keep a notebook where I write everything down. And at the end of the season, I'll go back through and review everything and see where the high points and the low points were. Yesterday, for instance, I went into the race significantly fasted. I had not eaten for several hours because one of the things that I'm testing is to see how the energy and the fueling strategies will work for me. So going into this particular race, I just focused on hydration throughout the day. And my feasting or my meals were going to be after the race. I wanted to see, could I maintain good energy in a fasted state? Now, many people, when they race in the morning. I have several clients who, as they've jumped in with me to join on some of these races, they say, how do you race at night? I don't know what this looks like. I said, well, I'm not sure either yet. Honestly, I'm still playing with that one because up to this point, I've never raced at night either. And so yesterday, as I went through this fasted state, and I was explaining this to one of my clients, he said, wait a minute, you're going to go run over 5 miles in the mountains where you're going to gain over 1,000 feet of elevation and you're not going to have anything in you? No, I'm not. But how are you going to do that? Won't you fall apart? Won't you bonk? Won't you run into this state where you're not going to be able to continue to go? I said, well, see, that's where a lot of popular media and social media experts, as we like to call them, get things wrong. We talk about the need to eat all the time, but the reality is your body will produce the energy relative to what its needs are. And I said, you always have sugar in your blood, right? It's not like my blood sugar drops because I don't consistently feed myself sugar. So I always have available energy. My body is always able to convert what's in it into energy. So I don't necessarily need to get sugar right before I go race. I don't necessarily need to eat some fat so that then automatically it goes into to my system and gives me the energy throughout that race. That's not how it works. And so part of what I'm testing is, do I race better in a fasted state and just staying super hydrated? Now, my client who I was talking to couldn't believe that I was even testing this idea. It just seemed abhorrent to him that I didn't go out there with a full belly or at least eat 2 to 3 hours before to make sure that my nutrition was ready to go. But the reason why I call this section the Evolved Man section is I believe we evolve by testing, learning, and growing. I believe the scientific methodology that is applied in scientific studies can also be applied to us. Now, am I telling you to go do what I'm doing? No. Am I telling you that, hey, it's probably good for you to test a few things here and there if you understand the science behind it? Yes. Take some time, test some things, and see what works best for you. Now, I'm happy to report I did okay in the race. I think I placed 7th in my age group. It was a tough race, and at the end of it, I felt phenomenal. I felt like I left everything out on the course that I wanted to, but I still had energy, and we went down and tailgated and had some amazing burgers afterwards. Hey, are you a busy executive, a CEO, a business owner, or a doctor? If you are, listen up. I'm excited because I'm going to be launching an 8-week men's group. Now, what does that entail? What do you get from it? And why would this matter to you? Maybe you're tired of doing the same things over and over again without getting great results. Maybe you're tired of looking the way you look and trying to hide behind certain clothes so that your belly doesn't show or your man boobs are covered up. Well, if that's you And you don't have a lot of time to put into this. I'm here to take the stress away. With this 8-week men's group, I'm going to coach you in a group setting, but your program is going to be specific to you. So, with each one of my clients, I'm going to be doing a kickoff call where I take a full intake of where you're at. What are your goals? What are your injuries? Where are you currently at? What are you currently doing? And we're going to determine what your plan needs to be from there. Your plan will be very custom to you. The group portion of it will be on the app and in group calls. Now, when I say on the app, I have a training app where we communicate. Your workouts are delivered in there, your nutrition is delivered in there, and we communicate in the app, and you will be chunked in with other like minded men. One of the things that I've found over the years is that if you are a CEO, a doctor, a lawyer, a business owner, or just a high performing, busy executive, is that you crave being around other people that are like minded, but also people who think slightly different that can challenge you. And so you'll be in with other men like you. Now, here's what I can promise you. If you stick to the process for 8 weeks, you are going to gain muscle, you are going to lose body fat, you are going to get out of a significant amount of pain that you are currently in, and you're going to make connections with other like-minded men. Now, if you live in the Utah area, specifically in the Salt Lake area, one of the things that I'm offering with this 8-week group is that we'll be doing at least 1 or 2 get-togethers on the weekend where we will get together for a fitness and food experience. This is where we will get together, talk, work out, get some time in nature, and have some great food and connect. So if this sounds of interest to you, jump on any one of my social media platforms or go to becomeanevolvedman.com, send me a message, and we'll go through the application process to see if you are a right fit. Hey, do you want to cut through all of the BS that's out there in the social media sphere? Do me a favor, jump on and sign up for our newsletter. You can also subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from. And the newsletter and the podcast will help you to cut through the BS. Now, BS can mean 2 things. It can mean the thing that you think it means, and it can also mean the belief systems that you've already put together that are keeping you stuck. If you sign up for the Evolved Man newsletter or you subscribe to the Evolved Man podcast, here are my gifts for you. One of the gifts is that you have access to take your nutrition archetype quiz and your breakpoint quiz and get the results at any point in time. My other gift for you is my 23-page guide that will help you to understand what are the top priorities that you need to be focusing on in order to get into great shape, strong, lean, and fit for life. So, if you want to cut through the BS and you want to make lasting results for you, join the newsletter, subscribe to the podcast, join the community. All right, let's talk success and wins. It's really tough today to see people online, especially in the social media sphere, where you're looking at a guy who claims to be natural or who claims to have gotten in shape in 4 weeks. And you really question, you wonder, how does his skin look that thin? How do his biceps look that big? Why do his shoulders look like softballs? Well, it's really easy, guys, to jump on a little bit of TRT, to take a little bit of semaglutide, and to get some good-looking results. Now, here's the downside. When you go the medicated poke pill powder route, those are not sustainable results. So I'm here to tell you about some amazing sustainable results. Now, I've got one of my corporate clients. For those of you that don't know, I do corporate coaching where I develop coaching programs for corporations. I also work with corporations in a keynote speaker or a lunch and learn fashion to help your business to become healthier, reduce all of your out-of-office expenses significantly because your staff becomes healthier. So one of my corporate clients are a small group of financial investors. They've got about a dozen people on the team, and we recently did a pretty fun event for them. So this event lasted 8 weeks long, and it was a challenge to say how much body fat can you lose and how much muscle can you gain. We had a first, second, and third prize that the corporation had put up prizes for, and I brought some prizes in as well. And the results were astounding. Now, remember, these are not people who are doing pokes, pills, and powders. There is no pharmacological aid for these folks. What they were able to achieve was absolutely astounding. But at first pass, you may have blinked and missed it, because if you were to take every one of the people that participated, and they all stood on the scale at the very beginning, and they stood on the scale at the very end, you would see a difference of a total of 10 pounds. But the body composition showed way more. This group of about 9 individuals that finished out the challenge lost over 31 pounds of fat. Think about that. 8 weeks, 31 pounds of fat down. But what's even more astounding is that this group put on over 21 pounds of lean muscle. That is life-changing. That is business-changing. Not only did they get into better shape, but they started to improve every area, every aspect of their lives. In fact, one person told me that just by changing the way that she was eating, she had less headaches, less migraines, had more energy, and was able to be a better mother and grandmother. She was able to put on some muscle, to be stronger, to do more, both at work and at home. These are life-changing results. Now, only 8 weeks. At the end of those 8 weeks, one of the guys told me, I can't believe that I was able to change this much in 8 weeks. If you would have told me that I could change this much in 8 weeks with focused effort on my nutrition, cardio, and strength, I wouldn't have believed you. I can't believe it, but I have a new body now. 8 weeks. Start small, start simple, and start focused, and you can gain massive success. Now, maybe it doesn't take 8 weeks to achieve your goal. Maybe it takes 6 to 9 months. Who cares? But if you can start and commit to something for 8 weeks, you're going to be much better off 8 weeks from now. And wherever you end up, you're going to be in a healthier state. And I can tell you this, no one has ever regretted dropping body fat, building muscle, and improving their overall lifestyle when it was all said and done. In our final segment, I want to use a thing that I really hesitate, because I hate to do this. Like, I hate to even talk about it, because I think there's a lot of power behind this, but this phrase, became popular with the show Ted Lasso, where Ted said, you need to become curious, not judgmental. So do me a favor for just a second. Just pause what your thought or your belief is with the goofy mustache and the Ted Lasso character, and stay with this thought for a second with me, because this is a problem that I see in almost every client that I have, if they've tried and failed in the past to achieve a goal. Now, recently I was talking to a client who, when he came to me, he had a significant amount of pain, specifically in his lower back and his hip areas. Very common for both men and women. But men, as we age, we tend to deal with much tighter hips, and we sit a lot, and then we try to go be the rock star football player that we used to in high school, and then we get injured, right? And so this client came to me with a hip injury and a low back injury that was just not getting better. And so we started to work on it. We peeled back the onion layers. We understood where his problems were, and we started to make the relevant changes to his lifestyle, to his nutrition, to his strength training plan to get him to where he was out of pain. I told him at the time, I said, number one goal is we got to get you out of pain. Number two goal is to reduce the amount of instances within a certain period of time. And so if you were used to throwing your back out or throwing your hips out every couple of months, and we go 4 months, we go 6 months with that not happening, that's goal number two, right? Now, goal number three is that if and when it does happen, we want to reduce your turnaround time. For most clients, when they injure themselves, they're down and out for anywhere between a week to 3 months, or maybe they just go on this downward spiral and they don't quite ever get out of it. And so recently, my client had something come up where he had re-injured that same spot. And the feeling was there of sadness. The feeling was there of feeling dejected. The feeling was there of being demoralized. And almost like it was the same thing that happened before. And I said, okay, well, let's pause for a second. So think about what happened. You had a twinge in that same area. Did it stop you from doing your day to day life? No. Okay, is that the same or different? Well, yeah, it's different. Okay, it brought you down so that you're doing less movement and you've got some pain, but it didn't stop you. And now it's starting to feel a little bit better. How long did it take to get feeling a little bit better? Oh, well, a couple days. How long did it used to take? Weeks. Great. So we've decreased the amount of time that it takes to get you feeling a little bit better. Yeah. Great. Are we in the same spot that we were before? No. All right. So now let's dig a little bit deeper. This is where the be curious, not judgmental comes in, and I'll explain it at the end. But what I find is most of us, especially guys, right? Because guys don't really develop their full brain until probably about age 25 is what science tells us. We're not very good at recognizing sensations, feelings, and emotions. And I do believe that it's important for you to be able to distinguish between those three. So as I had the conversation with my client, I'm going to have the same conversation with you as if we're sitting across from each other. And I want you to try this exercise with me. What I want you to do is I want you to pull out a pen, paper, or the notes app on your phone and just start to write down what are the sensations that I feel on a regular basis? What are the feelings? And then what are the emotions? Now, we need to delineate between these three for an important reason. Now, let's break them down first, though. The sensation. So let's say that I walk outside and I can feel wind on my skin. That wind coming across my skin is a sensation that I feel. Maybe that wind feels hot or it feels cold. That's the feeling, right? The emotion might be one of calm or peace because I'm sitting here in the wind. Now, maybe the wind is going really hard and it's cold, and then I feel scared because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't bring a coat with me. Sensation, feeling, and emotion are three totally different things that we need to understand, and we need to understand how they're tied into our belief systems. When you feel pain, so let's go back to my client. Let's say that you are my client and you're sitting across from me and we're talking about this, and you now have the pain that you felt before. What is the pain? Well, maybe the pain was a sensation of a twinge. What did it feel like? Well, it felt dull. Maybe it felt a little bit sharp, and maybe it felt very abrupt. Well, what was the emotion that came with that? You see, this is where most people's self awareness falls apart. And I'm not picking on this one client because I'm here to tell you this happens every single time we go through this exercise. How did you feel emotionally? I don't know. Why don't you know what it felt like emotionally? Well, here's why. You see, once we have sensation and feeling, we automatically skip emotion very quickly because we get to a story. And that story is something that we've built a pattern on. Now, when you are scared of something, or when something comes up that shocks you, or something that startles you, most of us think about the fight or flight response, right? But it's not really two F's, it's three. It's fight, flight, or freeze. And so when you feel pain, you go into a fight, flight, or freeze response. Now, most of us don't fight when we feel pain, especially if it's low back pain. You're not trying to fight through it in that moment. What happens is you typically will freeze. You'll freeze and you'll become scared. You'll freeze and you become anxious. You'll freeze and you'll have a sense of trepidation that this is, oh, I can't believe this, right? This is where the emotion comes in. You feel defeated. You feel sad. You feel dejected. You feel like that all of the work that you've done is for nothing because now you're injured again, and history is going to repeat itself, and I'll never get to the point where I'm not in pain. These feelings are directly tied to thoughts that we've told ourselves in the past. We freeze. And when we freeze, what do? Well, we tighten up more. So when we tighten up more, the muscles become protective. And then once that happens, we start to feel anxious. And when we feel anxious, we're triggering more of that fight, flight, or freeze response. And so we're tapping into the sympathetic portion of our nervous system to say, dump more adrenaline, dump more cortisol. And when you freeze, you become stiff and you limit your movement and you judge that you can't move. And rather than being curious, rather than saying, but what if? What if I tried stretching? What if I were to move and rotate and twist this way very slowly? What if I were to go back into my mobility drills, but I did them very slowly? What if I did these things? And instead of freezing, what if I just stayed calm and relaxed? What if I trusted that my body is only responding with this sensation relative to where I'm at, and that all sensations, all feelings go away over time? Nothing is permanent. What if we paused? What if we trusted our body? What if we listened to it? You see, pain is not pain. It's not one thing. Pain is like a baby's cry. A baby cries when it's pooped its diaper. A baby cries when it's lonely. A baby cries when it's been hurt. A baby cries when it's scared, sad. A multitude of things can make a baby cry. If you're a parent, you can follow along with me pretty easily on this one because you know this about your kids. Their cries are different. There's a different cry for scared. There's a different cry for hungry. There's a different cry for lonely. There's a different cry for I peed my diaper. They're different cries. The body sending a signal of pain is not really pain. What it's sending is a signal to catch your attention. It's telling you that maybe that joint isn't stable enough to do what you want to do. And so you may need some mobility. You may need some soft tissue work. You may need to strengthen that particular area a little bit more because something's happened, right? It's not good. It's not bad. It just is. So instead of freezing and letting the freeze take over, what if instead of being judgmental that this is going to happen again and oh my gosh, I can't believe it and this is never going to change and I'm the same and this is the same and what if instead of being judgmental you just paused and you were curious? You said, what if? And what if I sat down and was honest with myself? What if I was honest about what I ate last week and I realized that, hey, maybe I ate a little bit too much junk and it's sitting heavy in me and it started to cause some gastric distress and that gastric distress pushed down on my pelvic floor. My pelvic floor is not very stable right now and I moved with an unstable pelvic floor. So I have what Steve calls a naked spine and I rotated a little bit too much and I don't have protective mechanism from the internal core. I know you're thinking that, right? You're going through all that scientific definition just in a 5-second time. But what if you did? What if you understood how this worked? And what if you started to get curious to say, oh, so it was probably the food. All right. So now I'm a little bit unstable. What if I ate a little bit different? What if I now started to go back into slow movement? What if now I gave my body a little bit more time for rest and recovery? And I did more mobility work. I did some soft tissue work. I rolled on the peanut. I pulled out the foam roller. I did the things that I know how to do. And you did that. If you're curious, now you start to eliminate one of the other F's. So we talked about freeze. The other F is flight. Flight. What are you talking about, Steve? That's the question I get asked most. I'm not leaving my body. I'm not going anywhere. Bullshit. You leave. And you do it in a couple of different ways. The way you leave, number one, is you dissociate. You leave your body. You have a sense of self-abandonment because you pick up your phone and you dull your senses by staring at a screen. You bury yourself in work. You stare at social media. You do whatever it is that your localized addiction is, and you go to that. And you abandon, you flee from your body. The other way you flee is instead of doing, as we say in yoga, sitting in your shit, you then start to drug yourself with an excess of food or alcohol or whatever your drug of choice is. So you may go sit on the couch, flip on Netflix, watch some stupid show while you're downing way too many calories to dull yourself, and you're fleeing. You are leaving your body. You are giving yourself, your body, this self-abandonment that it doesn't need. What could you do instead? Well, instead of freezing, you could be curious. Instead of fleeing, you could be curious. You could say, wait a minute, what is my body telling me right now? And maybe instead of going to Netflix and grabbing the food and drugging yourself to make you feel better, and instead of then overeating and putting on a few pounds so that then it makes everything worse, you stopped that cycle and you start to be curious and not judgmental that, hey, this is going to continue on. Well, it's going to continue on if you do that that freeze or flee for sure. But if you don't do that and you start to become curious and say, well, what if I just went for a walk? What if I didn't put expectations on myself of what my body should do right now, and I just focused on what it can do? Okay, it can walk. Great. So you go walk. And then maybe after 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, it starts to get a little bit achy and you say, I'm going home. And then I'm going to rest and I'm going to immobilize and I'm going to eat well and I'm going to hydrate. And then I'm going to be curious and I'm going to test to see what's going to get me out of this painful state right now. And instead of fleeing from your body, you lived in it. Instead of fleeing and running away from your emotions, your feelings, and your sensations, you lived in them. So if you and I were sitting together across from each other and we're having this conversation and you said, hey, I feel pain. Now, this pain may be emotional pain. It may be physical pain. I don't care what it is. I want you to dig back to this sensation. What sensations do you feel? And then what are the feelings that are tied to that sensation? And then I want you to write down the emotions. And then I want you to go a step further and I want you to tell yourself every BS that you're putting into your system. What is the belief system that you now have that you continually just hit on repeat over and over and over again that's keeping you in the cycle of pain? If you utilize this tool will help you to create a habit out of being curious and not judgmental. This is the habit of evolution. This is the habit that once practiced and mastered will help you to become an evolved man over time. If you're judgmental, you will continue to tell yourself, I'm fat because I'm 40. I'm fat because of my genes. I'm out of shape because of my... None of those belief systems are correct. But once you become curious, you start to get to the root of the problem. When you understand the root of the problem, that's when healing can take place. Hey guys, thanks again for listening to this episode. It was great to be back with you today. Hey, do me a favor, will you? I do these podcasts because I love to make a difference in people's lives. And I hope that this is making a difference in your life. And so if there is one topic that you loved, liked, or found benefit from, do me a favor, will you? Just shoot me a message. I think that in our totally disconnected social media sphere that we live in, we forget what real social looks like. We forget to reach out and to give people feedback and to help them to understand what you want them to do more of. Now, I also believe that in our social media sphere, it's very, very easy to sit on the other end and be a keyboard warrior that spews out all of your opinions and all of your negativity. If you have something like that, move on to another account. I don't really care. But if you do find some value or some benefit, do me a favor, share that back with me so that I know that it's making a difference in your life. And hey, it would help if you would share that with your friends. The best way that we grow with the podcast or with our social media is when you share things. So share it with your family, friends, frenemies, whoever you want to share it with, and I would be forever grateful. And now it's time for you to get out there and evolve. Thanks for joining me for this episode of The Evolved Man. If you're learning from and gaining value from this podcast, please subscribe to the Evolved Man newsletter, where I can support you even more in your evolution. I want to help you reverse engineer your success. The Evolved Man newsletter is like getting a free coaching session with me every week to keep you moving forward on your path to personal success. Go to theevolvedmanpodcast.com to sign up today. If you found value in this episode, you can give us up to a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify and share it with your network. That's the best way to support the podcast so we can continue to get on great guests and provide you this amazing free content. Until next time, keep evolving.